And of course, I also want to say thank you for the invitation. It's the second time that I'm here, so I don't think the first time I was here it was so bad. So thank you for having me again. Obviously, this is my first presentation in English because I have dyslexia myself and come out of a dyslexic family. When I teach the students, I always say to them that they should just go out and try things. It doesn't kill you. So I have said no so many times for English presentations, but now I'm here, and I hope that you will understand me. And also, when I meet some of these hard words, I might need to stand up and think about how can I pronounce it correctly. So that's a part of being dyslexia, I think. But what I'm interested in is to give all dyslexia a possibility to go for the dreams. I did that myself. I come out, as I told you, from a dyslexia family. My father is very dyslexic, but he did all right, of course. But I'm a teacher, and I'm also have this master degree in Danish. And can a dyslexia have such kind of an education? And the answer is yes. If you have a good friend, Michael, he's the co-founder of Dyslexia Training, and work hard, then you can succeed in doing it. So I'll just move on to our company. I think that went a little bit too fast. We have existed since 2012, and we have been working on making materials for this group. So one of the materials you can see here, and we were quite inspired by this Orton and Gillingham method from the States, where we try to do the things a little bit multisensoric, I think it's called. So we use tapping when we work with kids, and we don't have this idea that we want to learn them to be the best writers and readers in the world, but we want to give them the background and to use the technology. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. We have also been working in a lot of municipalities. That is one of the words I really worked on saying, and help them with build up strategies. When do we test? Why do we test? Who's going to test? And what do we do when we find these kids with dyslexia? So I teach around 1,000 teachers each year in how you can be dyslexia friendly, but I still think that it's not a method only for dyslexia, but a lot of other kids can now I just have to think, but a lot of other kids can also, it can be useful for a lot of other kids as well. So I'm just want to take you on a journey in what we did in Denmark, because if you are an adult in Denmark since 1999, you have free dyslexia education. And because of this OECD study, they found that 600 adult Danes had such a poor functional literary skills that they could not pass an education. So therefore, in Denmark, we created a test for adults. And that was the first time I was working with dyslexia, was with that test. After that, I did an education for them. But me and Michael, we stopped up and thought, what about people under 18? Because a lot of them came into us and we tested them and they were dyslexia. So we wondered, why isn't there a test for kids? What do we do with that? And when we started our company in 2012, we wanted to start test also kids Not in every municipalities, the leader of the schools thought that was a good idea because the parents, they wanted education. So now we have these tests we could make, but the focus was also to create a test for kids, and luckily we have a lot of good professors. We have one, especially Carsten Elbro. They worked on making this test available. So now in the current situation in Denmark in 2017, it became mandatory for all schools to test kids for dyslexia. And all municipalities are required to have a dyslexia strategy. So a lot have happened also since we started, and also, of course, when you make a test mandatory, that there will be a lot of focus on this. So the Egmont Foundation did in 1918 this big focus on try to find out what is the problem out there. And I have some of the results from the report with me. And if you are a teacher for dyslexia in the primary school, you can ask yourself, what is the problem? In this particular report, 90-70% of young people with dyslexia completed 9th grade. So what is the problem? They also wanted to start on a secondary education, but however, only 69% completed a secondary education compared to 81% for the rest of the cohort. If I should stop up and give my thoughts about it, is that the people with dyslexia, that was me, they start a secondary education. They are maybe good technical readers and spellers, but they use too much energy. So when they come to this secondary education, they meet a lot of more text. They have to read fast, and because of the dyslexia, it will be a problem. They read too slow and they use too much energy. So if you don't solve this problem in the primary school, the problem will just move on and will come later on, I think. The report also demonstrated that if the individual with dyslexia comes from a lower socioeconomic background, there was also this significant difference in educational outcome. And the difference was so big that you consider it as a double challenge. So yeah, you also really, and we have worked with that with the Egmont Foundation, where we try to find persons who comes from socioeconomic backgrounds, poor socioeconomic backgrounds, and make some interventions on them. And we could see, based on some tests on how they use the IT tools, that they were getting better. And I think that's the key point if they should succeed in the secondary education and also in higher education, is that they should know the tools. They should know how I remember best, and they should understand their dyslexia, because if they don't do it, they don't use the tools, and the problem will, as I say, come later on, and also make some points on that later on. Yeah. But in Denmark, we have this test for dyslexia. We also have a test for risk of dyslexia going from first degree. So it's also every school has to do it. They can't say that we won't test our students. They have to do it. And also this dyslexia test, you can take it from 3rd class and onwards. So also if you go in secondary schools or if you go in higher education levels, this is the same test that we use. When I have been tested, when I tested persons in the higher education levels, if you look at the results, they will have it all right. But there is one part where they don't succeed, and it's in the speed. So there is also a speed limit here. And when you have taken this test, it starts just with an introduction. Have you experienced any reading and spelling problems? This first test has nothing to do with the result, but it's just a nice background to have for the reading consultant. The second test, the student will spell some nonsense word. They look the same, and they have to choose the correct one. So they listen to the word byne in Danish, and then they have to find the right word between words looking the same. So they have to put the phonics together to have the right answer. The next one, actually I think I remember when I should be a dyslexia teacher, that was the first time I stopped up and thought, oh my God, this is so difficult. You have to identify a nonsense word that sounds like a real word. In this particular word here, the student should choose the word kys, because it sounds like the correct Danish word kys. So it takes all my orthographical representations away from me, and I have to, find this word sounds like a real word. And for me, that was where I stopped up and thought, what about yourself? And also I can remember when I was in primary school or in secondary school, the teachers told me, Thomas, when you read a book, it's like watching a movie. But I didn't see myself at that time as a dyslexia, because I was a technical good reader and a technical good speller. And then when I looked at my dad, he couldn't read, he couldn't spell. When I got a text message from him, it was just OK, hi, Friday, Monday, and I didn't see myself like that. So of course, my dyslexia is also for me that I use a lot of energy when I read. I can read everything in Danish, not in English, but in Danish I can. But it's the energy I use to do it. So this test was very difficult for me. And finally, there is this small vocabulary test, and it doesn't say anything about how good is the kids' vocabulary. It just makes sure that you can make a solution of the third test type. So it takes around half an hour, and then you have your diagnosis, and I think it's good. But right now in Denmark, we have a little problem with the yellow ones. And the yellow one is called phonological unsecure. And also because it's a multiple choice test, and when you have maybe 63 point, you are red, 64 point, you are yellow. So right now we have with the government a big how to call it? We have a big group of yellow tested persons where we have tried to give them the same interventions as we did with the red ones and see how do that affect on them. Because I think some of them will just do like this, and some of them will stay here, and maybe they have dyslexia as well. We'll see. Yeah. Now I want to be a little bit more concrete, because when I go out to school, now I call it dyslexia friendly. Actually, I don't like that word, because I actually think where am I? Yeah. I think the way we operate is generally just friendly. So the first thing we do is to give the students a proper explanation of what is dyslexia. They have to understand their dyslexia. Because even though you are a proficient technical reader, you often spend too much energy on the word decoding. And that's what the first thing we do is to show it to the dyslexia. So we always take a test in reading speed and comprehension, because they don't know it themselves, especially if they are tested in secondary schools. They don't think that they have a problem. But of course, when they go there, the teacher can see they don't succeed, and then they take this test I showed you before, and then they found out that they have dyslexia. And for some of them, they really don't understand it. They don't want to use the tools. And the most common answer, Elisabeth Arnbach made also a report, Project IT, and they could see that they got better comprehension, but in a Danish context, only 40% use the tools in an everyday school life. So that's a problem. So we always take the speed and comprehension test because they read too slow. And we also want to make the persons aware that when they meet new technical terms in school, their phonological difficulties may make it harder to store the word in the memory. So I have, since I knew that I should come here, worked on a lot of these words and have to pronounce them for myself, so I feel a little bit more secure, and I also think that I can use some of the words when I go out from here. So that's the first thing we do, and we also do it to the parents, because I also want them to understand what dyslexia is. So when Uncle Jim asks, "Oh, your daughter is dyslexia, that's not good for her." Easy. This is dyslexia. So we have to give a proper explanation for it. That's the start. And of course, there also a start. Now you have seen that we have this test in Denmark, but the start is also to how can we test for it. I just have the key things from this Arnbach project, because the purpose was to investigate the impact of IT support, but they couldn't do it in long term because the students didn't use it. But they have some findings, and as I told you, they demonstrated, the dyslexic individuals demonstrated a better reading comprehension, and they were a better speller, but there was this problem that they didn't use it. And the most common student response was, "I can read it myself. I can read it myself." It wasn't that the voice from the text to speech was bad. Of course, that was also a problem for some of them, but the most common answer for the students was, "I can read it myself." Of course, some of the dyslexia persons did use it, but it was only the person who has so big phonological problems and have so many problems with reading that they have to use it. Otherwise, they couldn't read a text. But the other ones, they didn't use it in a Danish context. Yeah. In Denmark, I can't show it to you because I don't have my own computer, but in Denmark we have some very good IT programs which can help the dyslexia student to read and spell. But when the kids come to us, we can also see that some of them don't have the necessary phonological awareness and understanding of the written language to be able to use these programs. When you have to spell with these programs, you have to spell it. In Denmark, we called it children's spelling, just spelled the word how it sounds. But the problem is for dyslexia, when they have to, if there are 2 or 3 consonants, it's so hard for them to go into the word correctly. So if they have to, we have a difficult Danish word to spell, jaloux. We spell it the same way as they do in France, with an J-A-L-O-U and an X. But if you have to use this program, you could just say S, a J in Danish, lu, and then the program can help you. That's good, but if they're not trained in this, they don't put in the J, and then we have a problem. Then the program can't help them. So when we have dyslexic persons who need to use or have to use these tools, we also have to make sure that they have the necessary phonological awareness of doing it. I have also been to a lot of presentation where a guy or a girl, doesn't matter, speaks to text, and that's also a good thing. But you can hear in my English as well. If I should use that in English, I really have to have the sentence in my head. I really have to pronounce it correctly, and that can be a very difficult thing in an everyday school life. Maybe there's also a bit noise in the classroom, so when somebody screams something, it just also go into the speech-to-text recognizer. So we must ensure that we have the right necessary phonological awareness, and that is what our materials try to work on. That's why we tap, that's why we overlearn these sounds, because we want to make them better for using their IT tools for reading and spelling. Yeah. Just see if I got it all with. Yes, I think so. Number 3, we also, when we have the students, we talk to them also about how they prefer to answer questions in their everyday school life, because they should have some multimodalities way of doing it, because some of them want to write independently, some of them want to use speech-to-text, and I have highlighted audio files, because in an everyday school life, I think it works. So if I'm a teacher in biology, for an example, and I have put out some questions for the kids, how is the heart built up? The problem is with the assistance of writing support, they have to sit and have to find it. Okay. Oh, there it was. And you can also put in maybe a sign where you can throw some things away in the word, but it just takes too long, I think. Of course, you can use speech-to-text, but again, if I was sitting in the classroom, the heart is built up. You really have to pronounce it correctly, and when we work with subjects, from in biology, in mathematics, in these things, it is hard to pronounce the words. So I really like audio files, and you can do it in a different ways. They always have their phones with them. They can upload them where they save things. And otherwise, on a computer, there is so many of these audio files recording things. And when I have been working out in schools with the kids, they love it. They love it because our dyslexia will still give us problem when we use assistant of writing support. When we use speech-to-text, it will still makes problem for us. But if you use audio files in a daily life, when you use the exercises, you have free energy just to speak. And the other good thing is that you have to pronounce the word that you meet, and that's make it easier for you to remember them when you meet them again. Otherwise, you can just make a copy-paste or something, and then you think that you had answered a question. So there's a lot of ways of doing it. Of course, when you have to write something, it's if you have to write a biology report, maybe for someone it's good to still use audio files, but of course you need to try to make the verbal language to a written language in a way. But if you can't do it verbally, I don't think that you can write it as well. The last one, it's for the teachers. They really need to have knowledge about different reading and spelling difficulties. You have some of them, now I talk dyslexia, but there is a lot of different reading and spelling difficulties, and some of them, can go through each other. We have to make sure that teachers can guide the students in the use of IT tools. We need to work with the topics vocabulary before reading. I think that's so important. I always when I go in and throw the biology teachers away and I say, let me try, I always make this exercise called Taste the Words. So I have found I find these topics before we even start to read, and then they go out and Google a picture, and they have to say, I think that the word means, because I want them to pronounce them before they start to read. Actually, AI can help a lot here. I have worked with, put my text into the ChatGPT and then ask it to give me the 10 hardest words to pronounce, give me the 10 most important words, and it gives it to me. Also, if we take the next one, if you can be able to differentiate text or topics, AI can help a lot. Make the text more simple. It does it. So I have used AI a lot when I work as a teacher with dyslexia. Of course, making subject-specific terms visible in the classroom is also a good thing. And for me, the most important thing today is to set the same expectation for dyslexia students, but allow them to respond as the way they want to respond on. But we need to have the same expectations, but they can maybe answer in another way. They have to do the same when they are going in first class, second class, third class, fourth class. If dyslexia is the main problem, they have to do the same as everybody else. Yeah, so I want to say thank you. And before we go to a break, I hope that I can play this for you, because now you can also take off your headphones, because this is me when I'm listening to English music, for example. So I think that you will feel the same way, because when I listen to English music, my dyslexia will also, make it difficult to me, because I just hear it like, blah, 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 beautiful, yeah, okay, sounds good. And then I have to go out and read the text before I can sing. So the other co-owner, Michael, he can just, listen to a text and then he can sit and sing it. I have to listen to it so many times that I have to go in and write the text before I have any idea of what they sing. So thank you for your time, and enjoy this little movie.